In the history of humanity, no one has survived rabies. Once the virus gets into the host body, it moves swiftly through the nervous system, hijacks the brain, and always kills the host.
If the person doesn't know they're infected or realizes the danger from that event, exposure to a rabid animal, when you start to present, you present with very vague, nonspecific flu-like signs. By the time you find out that it's something a little bit more severe than a head cold, the story's over and the person's become a statistic.
This was what awaited Gina. But no one yet suspected rabies in First World America. In hospital, they ran tests.
It was
a person.
There is a vaccine for rabies, but this woman did not get it in time. If there is a delay of more than 24 hours in getting inoculated after being bitten, if the first symptoms appear, then it's already too late. Nothing can save you. It was only then, after all other possibilities had been exhausted, that Gina's mother finally remembered the bat bite.
Something made me tell him, you know, she was bit by a bat. His face turned white. I'm not kidding. He looked, well, when did that happen? About a month ago. Well, you know, and he made me tell him the whole, how it happened and all that. And went over things again, her symptoms, and he says, I'll be right back.
If it was rabies, Gina would progress to the disease's final and terminal stage in a matter of days. The local doctor realized he needed help. Now, when the textbook said it was already too late, Gina was referred to the intensive care unit at Children's Hospital in Milwaukee. The doctor on call, Dr. Rodney Willoughby, faced the deadliest virus known to man. Just the suspicion that he had a rabies case sent Dr. Willoughby on a frantic, though he knew hopeless search for a cure. He immediately sent samples of the spinal fluid to the Centers for Disease Control for confirmation.
I think we consider rabies to be the Mount Everest. It's uniformly fatal, it's quickly fatal. People have tried forever to treat it and it's never worked.
But if it was rabies, Willoughby knew he was out of his depth. He'd never even seen a case before, but he knew enough to be afraid. He needed to know if there was anything out there in the medical papers that might lead him to a possible treatment. Everything he read said there was no cure, nothing that ever worked. Gina was going to die.
She had zero chance of survival. And I actually think the medical therapy, at least parts of what have been recommended, are harmful. Articles continue to recommend that rabies patients be given sedation and that their pain be controlled. And so they're placed in darkened rooms, usually bound so that they cannot hurt themselves further, and sedated until nature takes its course, which is typically within a day or so. There are experts writing on how to care for rabies patients, but if it doesn't work, there's no sense in reading those articles, and I actually didn't on purpose to save time.
Most patients are dead in 3 to 4 days. A country like the US, the median time before somebody dies after they first experience symptoms of disease is about on the order of 2 weeks.
Once rabies takes hold, the virus invades the victim's mind. They become the agent of the virus. They froth at the mouth and lurch from horrified awareness of what is happening to them to insanity and back again. Without a miracle, Willoughby knew this would be Gina's fate too. But then, working against the clock, Willoughby found an obscure paper on the internet which suggested the first glimmer of an idea. The author had discovered that while rabies patients die having violent fits and convulsions, their brains appear to be physically undamaged. This turned our understanding of the way rabies killed on its head.
The idea was this remarkable disparity between a patient dying a violent death and a brain which is pristine at the moment of death. And that's what we seized upon in constructing what we did to treat Gina.
From what Willoughby was reading, the virus seemed to hijack the brain, scrambling its messages, causing havoc in the host body that led to the failure of all vital organs. It was the rabid brain that killed the patient. Willoughby knew Gina had only hours left to live and threw himself into one last effort to create the cure that had eluded science for centuries. He already suspected that the key was the way rabies killed, hijacking the brain and scrambling its signals, sending the body haywire. His breakthrough was to realize that if he could shut down the brain, he could stop the virus in its tracks. Take Gina's brain offline, and perhaps he could buy her immune system time to rid her body of the virus. He'd put her into the deepest of comas, denying rabies the chance to kill Gina by effectively killing her himself.
And we noticed what looked like this huge hole in the defense of rabies that no one had tried. Just sedating the brain to the point where it couldn't function long enough for an immune system to finish the job off seemed obvious. And that.
So Willoughby went ahead with his experimental protocol, unheard of in the treatment of rabies. On October the 10th, Gina was put into a coma so profound she was only a hair's breadth from death itself. This is dangerous even for a few hours, but Willoughby planned to keep Gina under for as long as it took.
We're trying to buy time for the immune system to catch up. So the immune system takes about 5-7 days to start an antibody response and about 10 days to have it be vigorous. And we think that that antibody response is important for the clearance of rabies from somebody's brain. The worries were that as you push someone to sedation, it's a fine line between sedating the heart, for example, and sedating the brain. And so we were worried that we'd push too hard and her heart would fail. We were ready to pull the plug if things were bad because it's dangerous stuff.
But even if Willoughby's untried treatment didn't kill Gina, was it actually doing anything to help her fight the virus? Had this procedure brought her immune system the time to mobilize and fight back? All he and Gina's parents could do was watch and wait and hope the virus wasn't killing her quietly as she slept. When Gina Giese was infected with rabies from a bat bite, her doctor, Rodney Willoughby, knew the textbook said that she would die, but he refused to give up on her. In a few hours, he developed a radical treatment which might buy Gina's immune system time to fight the virus. She'd been in a chemically induced coma, perilously close to death, for 6 days.